Excellencies, fellow human rights defenders and advocates, friends in the media, Mrs. Tetapan, magandang hapon po sa inyo. I'm very pleased with this event. For this year alone, this is, I think, the third occasion that I attended where it involves human rights reporting. It's just another proof that human rights really has gained a lot of headway in Philippine consciousness. Let me first thank the Philippine Human Rights Reporting Project for organizing this event and for the launch of this handbook, Reporting Human Rights in the Philippines. Red, you were on top of this. Congratulations to you. The last time we saw each other was in Jakarta. Yes, also media, journalists. Journalists and media workers form part of the front line in the effort to ensure respect for human rights. It is your vigilance which alerts us to abuses carried out by the government and private individuals. It is your courage which sets back attempts by the powerful to run roughshod over human rights. It is your past success in dealing with and helping to bring down a dictator, which allows us to remain hopeful even in the face of the violations, more violations taking place today. As we work to promote respect for human rights, this handbook is a welcome addition to the body of work at our disposal. Since it offers operational advice and information, its contents are relevant to media workers as you go about your day, each day. The Commission on Human Rights hopes that this launch will not, in fact, be the final event of the Philippine Human Rights Reporting Project. We hope that organizations will continue to collaborate and coordinate into the future. And I understand I have only about 2 to 3 minutes. Allow me to discuss a few points briefly on human rights reporting. 1. Don't limit yourself only to certain topics when you wish to engage in human rights reporting. A human rights angle exists in every story that you do. A business article on a trade embargo has implications for the right to food. A news report on the outbreak of a disease touches on the right to the highest attainable standard of physical health. Even a show could have repercussions to the right to freedom of expression. So instead of trying to come up with separate human rights articles, consider what you already extensively write about. Each topic has a human rights aspect. Each narrative contains the human rights angle. And by drawing that part of your story out, you offer the audience a fresh take on the subject matter, while at the same time making human rights concrete to people. Also, by discussing the human rights implications of your stories, you make your coverage of those stories more complete. 2. Take advantage of the fact that human rights provides a set of criteria. Human rights law provides a set of criteria which can be used to scrutinize government actions and programs. It's easy enough for a government spokesperson to come out and say that a particular police action was proper, or that a particular government program meets the needs of the people. Things become more complicated when there's an attempt by the media to unpack government statements and gauge whether or not they actually are what is claimed. It becomes even more difficult to hold the government to a high standard when that standard keeps on shifting depending on who is speaking. Human rights law offers a way forward in this regard. The treaties, conventions, and covenants which make up international human rights law contain standards and criteria that do not shift and against which the actions of the government can be measured. These criteria were negotiated over extended periods of time by representatives of governments from all around the world. Human rights law offers an internationally acknowledged minimum set of standards, and if the national government cannot even reach these minimums, then the deficiencies of the government become all too clear. It is always well to scrutinize the concluding observations of the various treaty monitoring bodies of the United Nations. After each session of these bodies, like the International Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, the Committee Against Torture, the Committee on the Rights of Migrant Workers, they would issue the concluding observations and recommendations. It is always well to sift through the various recommendations and observations embodied in those issuances. 3. Remember that human rights law is in fact law. As recently as this month, during the hearing held by the Commission or resource person, that the government can choose to ensure the human rights of some persons but not of others. That is, of course, incorrect and totally unacceptable. Human rights law cannot just be ignored because it is inconvenient. It cannot just be discarded because abiding by it is difficult. It is law. The treaties, conventions, and covenants entered into by nations create binding international legal obligations which must be carried out in good faith. Our government is bound, and when it fails or refuses to abide by these obligations, attention must be drawn to these failings and refusals. 4. Don't stop probing. Follow through on a human rights story, issue, or event. That means that investigative journalism is a much preferred mode on HR reporting. When the police claim that a certain procedure, such as the detention of media personnel, is part of standard operating procedure, don't let it end there. Ask what that standard operating procedure is. Where can it be found? Is it a memorandum, a bulletin, a law? Ask for a copy so that you can scrutinize it yourself. Upload that copy to your website so we can all scrutinize it for ourselves as well. When the government claims that the information cannot be provided or a document cannot be made available for security reasons, dig deeper, assert your right to the freedom to seek, receive, and impart information. Ask for more information regarding the security reasons. Don't allow government officials to stonewall your investigations through the simple expediency of citing national security or by engaging in delaying tactics. National security is the favorite line whenever military camps would deny our investigators or our team access to those camps whenever we have surprise visits. That fact we shared with our recent engagement with the Committee Against Torture. 5th, do not allow government and elite or powerful interests to use you as pawns in attempts to circumvent the Bill of Rights and human rights protections. And when I say government, both national and local, we have a difficult experience in Davao in our ongoing probe into the DTS killings. This has already probably been mentioned to you before, but it's worth repeating. For instance, provisions in the Philippine Constitution were put in place in the aftermath of the Marcos dictatorship in order to prevent police officers from coercing confessions out of suspects and using this against them. These safeguards, however, do not currently apply to confessions elicited by. So be very careful when you are dealing with someone who is a suspect. Don't help law enforcement officers bypass human rights protection. Don't allow yourself to be used to undermine an individual's rights. After all, when the human rights protection of any group of persons is eroded, we are all put at risk. I end this brief discussion by expressing my profound respect for the media establishment. You have helped change the course of Philippine history with your words and with your images. A dictator attempted to silence you, but in the end you were there to chronicle his fall. The Philippines is a better place because of your vigilance and your courage. And it is that same vigilance and courage that we believe will allow us to overcome the human rights violations of today, so that in the end we can leave as our legacy a better, more just, and a more humane society. Thank you very much for allowing me to share.